IVM.
Hello and welcome to Simblified. Today we are in the presence of Naren and his son Gautam along with Sriket to explain something extremely complex. Naren, take it away.
Yes, so the reason I wanted to have this as an episode to the sort of very skeptical, sort of suspicious reception from my co-author. What, you're going to talk about music? Yeah, I thought that's because it's so. First, I'll tell you what the episode is about. It is about something called Modal Jazz. Okay, and Modal Jazz is jazz that makes use of musical modes. So there are things called musical modes that musicians will know about, and they modulate between them instead of relying on one tonal center. So most music has one tonal center, one core melody, and it has, it basically revolves around that. All the chords, everything revolves around that. And that is how music has been played for most of recent history. And though people were experimenting with different modes within the same piece of music, this concept was crystallized as a theory by a composer named George Russell. And he wrote a book in 1953 called Lydian Chromatic Concept of Tonal Organization.
Oh,
and
God. Wait, Naren, if I can try to simplify this for people who don't understand jazz, are you saying like normal music is like a standard podcast where there is one anchor and he drives the entire narrative? And this is more like Simplified where there are like multiple people.
Yeah, beautifully put. Exactly.
Okay, cool. Go on.
Anyway,
I cannot believe we have compared some aspect of jazz with Simplified.
Yeah. I mean, it's Modal Jazz, which is MODAL and not MODEL. So I'm not claiming that Simplified is the model podcast. It's the model podcast.
So what really grabbed my attention and what really took me up is, there's this great, one of the all-time greats of jazz named Miles Davis. Okay, so Miles Davis used to play something called Bebop, and Bebop is a style of jazz which consists of chords basically to provide background for solos. So some chords will be playing, and then a theme starts, and then the solo is played, and the chords keep repeating throughout the whole song. By the 50s, improvising over the chords had become a very dominant part of jazz, and it became so dominant that the sidemen at recording dates were sometimes just given nothing more than a list of chords to play. All they had to do was play those chords. Right. And Miles Davis found that boring, right? So Miles Davis was really accomplished, like a really good musician, and he didn't like the repetitiveness of the jazz that was being played at that time. So he decided to, invent his own. Well, he didn't invent it; it was written up by other people. But he decided to experiment with this thing, in which there was no single tone, no single tonal center. The tonal center would keep shifting. It means the melody would keep shifting. It means sound would keep drifting. And to make matters worse, there was no fixed rhythm either. The rhythm also would keep changing. And overall, the music became an order of magnitude more complex. And I thought that, if something like that happened, people would, they wouldn't like it. It would sound strange. It would sound different. Most of us,
It sounds like the music equivalent of like 3D chess.
Yeah, it happens. It happens even in games, right? So you have variants of games which never take off because people like their games in a certain predictable way. But for music, apparently that is not true. because when Miles Davis came out with his first album, it was almost an all-time, I don't know if it's all-time, but it's one of the highest-selling jazz albums of the time, at least. Probably of all time. And people just, Gautam says it is the highest-selling jazz album of all time. And I wanted to know what it is that makes modal jazz so interesting. So Gautam told me that it's about different modes.
Yeah. So you guys probably thinking, what are modes? Modes are nothing but, just think of it as moods. Okay? It's experimenting with different arrangements of the same notes to make it sound a different mood. I'll show it to you guys in a little bit, but what Miles Davis and other people, like this guy George Russell, who wrote the book Lydian Chromatic something. So he spoke about how to use these feelings and sort of accentuate the meaning of the song. And jazz earlier was groovy, and it was all about the rhythm and fast-paced chord changes, and everybody loved it. It's good to dance with. But the introduction of modal jazz just made music more, like a conversation, and you could sit and listen to it at any time of the day. You could listen to it on a nice rainy day when you're upset, when you're happy. You could, it was a lovely, different paced rhythm. There wasn't a specific rhythm to it. It would just change, and the players would all just go together. It's beautiful. But coming back to modes, they represent some sort of an emotion. If you look at it in that way, I thought I'd play you something and show you what it sounds like. So
yeah, go ahead.
Most of our music that we hear, rock, mostly revolves around this thing called the major scale or the minor scale, which is happy or sad. It's very, it's very binary. I'll show you what I mean. Here is a bunch of chords that I just looped a little while earlier. And I'm going to play the happy version of rock music. So this is what it sounds like. So this is very happy, right? And then you go switch on to something a little sad and goes on to something like this. So this is very, bipolar, and there's nothing more that you can contribute to this. All you can do is change the chord, the arrangement of notes a little bit, and it'll sound a little different. And people have been overusing this for years altogether, and I don't see the depth of just playing around the notes as much. So modes sort of add that depth to music. And jazz music, when they started playing with these modes, they introduced these different modes to add sort of different feeling in different parts of the song. And it goes something like this. So a happier sound. Okay, so I'll just go back a little bit. I'm sorry. There are about 7 modes. The 2 modes that I played to you are Aeolian and Ionian. Aeolian is a happier one, Ionian is a sad one. And then there are a few happy modes, sad modes, and then some ambiguous. So let's start with something called Lydian. This is one of the happier modes, and it sounds something like this. And it's a very happy sounding mode, and there's another one which is also very happy. Like there's this one called Mixolydian. It's quite similar. It sounds something like this. Ouch. There's something off. Yeah. And then there are the sadder ones. There's something that revolves around the Ionian mode that I played earlier, and it's called the Dorian mode. And this mode is kind of used a lot in Pink Floyd songs. I've seen Pink Floyd experiment with a lot of this. It sounds something like this. So this is a little gloomier, a little dull, and there's... Sorry.
Yeah. So these are the different modes. You had one which is the Phrygian mode, which is dark. Which is a
little dark. It sounds like the flamenco guys use it a lot. It's a Spanish sounding tone.
So can you illustrate now? These are the different modes, and what modal jazz means is that the performer mixes, like goes through different modes at different point of time. So how does that happen?
I guess I'm not that well versed with. I kind of understand what this music is, but I'm not an expert here.
Okay, so you won't
change between the tonal centers is.
But that's what someone like Miles Davis would do.
Yeah, that's what he would do. And what I wanted to explain was there are these different modes, right? And you can use these modes like notes and rearrange them and have patterns of feelings, and all these feelings put together in a song are very conversational, and they take you through the song like it's a story, and they explain more than it has more depth than a normal song.
So what appeals to you as a music listener?
Right.
Why does modal jazz appeal to you so much over what you used to like earlier, such as rock music?
Yeah, I used to listen to a lot of rock, and I still do, but rock revolves around just the one center, and it's nice to listen to once in a while. But when the moment I heard jazz, it took me through. It added this layer of depth, which was changing the tonal center, which was changing the root, and it it was kind of 2D versus 3D for me.
Okay.
And, I can see how it does get a little complex, and sometimes, you just want to listen to music that's very simple. But I like the challenge. It's very thought-provoking sometimes to just sit and listen to modal jazz, and it's very emotional. It was this layer of depth that I found missing in rock, which jazz did provide.
Yeah, and this actually kind of reminds me of how just another conversation that we were having about tones in language, and especially like Mandarin having different tones of how the language flows, and they are an essential part of the language itself. This almost feels like there are tones inside the music that this particular form is exploiting.
Yeah. So that different tones give you different moods and different meanings. Yeah. And one thing that I want you to do, Gautam, is to suggest a few sort of listening, like a little listening guide, a few links to songs that illustrate what modal jazz is about. Instrumental or vocal, either will do. Probably instrumental more than vocal. Yeah.
So the epitome of modal jazz is Miles Davis's album called It's called Kind of Blue. It's an album from 1959, and
this is the one which was the all-time bestseller.
Yes. So he signed a new contract with Columbia at that time, and he wanted to experiment with his music, and he signed a contract. He didn't really know how this music was going to take off, but it did turn out to be the biggest. I mean, it had the most sales of any jazz album ever. It sold 4 million copies, and it's almost impossible to find one of these records anywhere around. It's a collector's piece now. So this My Kind of Blue, and some specific songs within that. There's this song called Flamenco Sketches, and another one called Freddie Freeloader. These are really good songs to start listening to modal jazz. It's beautiful. You can see the tone changes evidently, and it's very nice music.
I'll put the links, the YouTube links
in the description. Yeah.
So this was mostly an experimental episode, listeners, because just wanted to experiment with a different kind of. Otherwise, we keep yakking ourselves. We get someone else to yak about something else for a change. And I sincerely hope you guys enjoyed this. And it's extremely complicated. And Gautam has explained this to me a dozen times already. And I still haven't wrapped my head around what modal jazz is. So you are excused if you find this to be way over your head. But listen to the links, and trust me, many of you will really enjoy this kind of music.
Super. So, so please do immerse yourself in modal jazz, and let us know what you think of our experimental episode of sorts. So in the meantime, Naren, take it away.
Yeah, stay cool, stay modal, and stay simplified.
Fantastic. All right. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that show. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money. So it's been a really, really fun week this week. We've had a great episode with Anand Nilakantha on Cyrus Says. Anand was one of the writers of Bahubali, and he's done some really, really fun stuff since that. Ashish Vidyarthi also had a really good episode on his show, Begin the Journey. Please do check that out. You do know Yuddha is back, right? Definitely check it out if you haven't. Yuddha is our show about Indian ancient warfare. It's hosted by Anirudh Kanisetti and Aditya Ramanathan. Really, really great show. You should check that out for sure. And I forgot. Rishikesh was on the network as well. He was on Absolutely Right with Aditi Sarana. Do definitely check that out. With that, hope to see you next week.
Namaskar, this is Ashish Vidyarthi. Yes, my friend, these are challenging times, but in these challenging times, we can create something extraordinary. Do take time to listen to my podcast, Begin the Journey. Available on the IVM Podcast, website, app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Remember, we have a great opportunity called life. Cheers.